The glass elevator climbed silently through the towering coal industries building, carrying Madison Cole to her corner office on the 47th floor. At 28, she commanded a tech empire worth over $2 billion, her sharp green eyes reflecting the same cold precision that had built her fortune from nothing. "Ms. Cole, your 2 p.m. is here," her assistant Jennifer announced through the intercom as Madison settled behind her mahogany desk, the Los Angeles skyline sprawling endlessly beyond floor-to-ceiling windows. "Send him in," Madison replied, not looking up from her tablet displaying quarterly projections. David Richardson entered with the confidence of old money and Harvard connections. Tall, impeccably dressed, and carrying the kind of smile that had opened doors his entire life. He'd been pursuing Madison for months, sending expensive flowers, arranging coincidental meetings at charity galas, and leveraging mutual business contacts. "Madison, you look stunning as always," David said, settling into the leather chair across from her desk without invitation. Madison's fingers paused over her tablet. "Mr. Richardson, I believe we're here to discuss the Henderson merger, not my appearance." "Of course, but surely we can mix a little pleasure with business." His eyes lingered on her fitted black blazer. "I've made reservations at Nobu for tonight. Just the two of us." The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Madison set down her tablet and fixed him with a stare that had made seasoned executives squirm. "Let me be crystal clear, Mr. Richardson. I'm not interested in dinner, drinks, or any other social engagement with you. Our relationship is strictly professional, and I'd prefer to keep it that way." David's confident smile faltered. "Come on, Madison. You can't work all the time. A woman like you needs a woman like me." Madison's voice carried a dangerous edge. "Please, enlighten me about what kind of woman I am and what I need." The silence stretched uncomfortably. David shifted in his chair, realizing he'd stepped into quicksand. I just meant that everyone needs companionship. You're successful, beautiful, intelligent. We could be good together." Madison stood, her 5'7" frame commanding despite David's height advantage. "Mr. Richardson, I've built this company by making smart decisions and avoiding distractions. You represent both a poor decision and a significant distraction. Jennifer will see you out." As if summoned by telepathy, Jennifer appeared in the doorway. David gathered what remained of his dignity and left without another word. Alone again, Madison walked to her window, watching the ant-like traffic crawl through downtown LA. This scene had played out dozens of times with different men. Wealthy investors, tech moguls, even a senator's son. They all saw her success as a challenge to conquer, her independence as something to be tamed. Her phone buzzed with a text from her best friend and CFO, Sarah. "Drinks tonight? You look like you could use them." Madison glanced toward Sarah's office across the building, where her friend was undoubtedly watching through binoculars and grinning. "Can't. Board meeting prep," Madison texted back. "It's Friday night, Mads. Even CEOs are allowed to have lives." Madison pocketed her phone without responding. She had a life, a perfectly ordered, successful, profitable life. She didn't need complications, especially not the kind that came with emotional attachments and vulnerability. At 8 p.m., the building had emptied except for security and a few dedicated workaholics. Madison finally packed her briefcase, her reflection in the dark window showing a woman who had everything she'd ever wanted. So why did the victory feel so hollow? The parking garage elevator was broken again, forcing her to take the stairs down 6 levels. Her heels echoed in the concrete stairwell, each step a reminder of how alone she was in this vast building she owned. Her black Tesla sat in its reserved spot, but as she approached, she noticed the traffic alert on her phone. A major accident had shut down the 405, and surface streets were gridlocked. The drive to her Malibu penthouse would take 2 hours minimum. Madison stared at the traffic map, then at the metro station entrance visible through the garage's glass doors. She'd never taken public transportation in LA, had never needed to. But tonight, the idea of sitting in traffic felt suffocating. 20 minutes later, she stood on the platform of the Pershing Square metro station, feeling oddly out of place in her designer suit among the diverse crowd of night shift workers, students, and late commuters. The fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows, and the air carried the urban mixture of exhaust, humanity, and something indefinably alive. As she waited for the Red Line train, a sound drifted through the underground space, soft, melodic, and hauntingly beautiful. Guitar strings being plucked with the kind of skill that spoke of years of practice and natural talent. Madison found herself walking toward the music, drawn by something she couldn't name. Around a corner, near the entrance to the Purple Line, she discovered the source. A young woman sat cross-legged on the cold concrete floor, her back against a tiled wall covered in faded advertisements. Her guitar was worn but well-maintained, and an old baseball cap lay open in front of her with a few scattered coins and dollar bills. She couldn't have been more than 25, with shoulder-length auburn hair that caught the harsh station lighting and turned it into something warm. But it was her voice that stopped Madison in her tracks. She was singing an original song, something about finding light in dark places, and her voice carried a raw honesty that cut through the urban noise like a blade through silk. In the spaces between heartbeats, in the silence between words, there's a truth we're all seeking but afraid to be heard. Madison stood transfixed, briefcase in hand, watching this young woman pour her soul into music for strangers who mostly hurried past without a second glance. There was something magnetic about her complete absorption in the music, the way she seemed to exist in her own world, despite being surrounded by the chaos of the metro system. When the song ended, the girl looked up, and their eyes met across the small crowd that had gathered. For a moment, Madison felt something she hadn't experienced in years, a flutter of nervousness, a crack in her carefully constructed armor. The girl smiled, a genuine expression that reached her eyes, and Madison felt her breath catch. Then the Red Line train arrived, with a screech of brakes and a rush of displaced air breaking the spell. Madison boarded the train, but as it pulled away from the station, she found herself looking back through the window at the young musician who had somehow managed to stop time with nothing but a guitar and her voice. For the first time in years, Madison Cole felt curious about someone else's story. Madison's Malibu penthouse felt different when she arrived home that night. The minimalist decor that usually brought her peace, white walls, clean lines, expensive art chosen by an interior designer, seemed cold and sterile. She stood on her balcony overlooking the Pacific, nursing a glass of wine and replaying the encounter in the metro station. She couldn't shake the image of the young woman with the guitar, the way her fingers moved across the strings with such confidence, the raw emotion in her voice. Madison had attended countless charity galas featuring world-renowned musicians, had box seats at the Hollywood Bowl, owned a collection of rare vinyl records she never had time to play. But none of that had moved her the way those few minutes underground had. "Get it together, Madison," she muttered to herself, finishing her wine. "She's a street musician. You're a CEO, different worlds." But even as she said it, she knew it wasn't about social status. It was about something deeper. The authenticity she'd heard in that voice, the fearlessness of putting yourself out there for strangers to judge. Madison had built walls so high that she'd forgotten what it felt like to be genuinely moved by another person. Saturday morning brought its usual routine, a 5-mile run along the beach, conference calls with international partners, reviewing quarterly reports. But by evening, Madison found herself making an excuse to drive downtown. She told herself she needed to check on a property Cole Industries was considering purchasing near downtown. It had nothing to do with the metro station. Except she parked near Pershing Square, and found herself walking toward the Red Line entrance. The young woman was there again, in the same spot, but tonight she wore a faded denim jacket over a simple black t-shirt. Her guitar case was open beside her, and she was tuning her instrument with the focused attention of a surgeon preparing for an operation. Madison hung back, pretending to study a metro map while listening to the sound check. The musician's fingers found a chord progression that was both melancholy and hopeful, and when she began to sing, Madison felt that same electric recognition. They say money talks, but I've learned to listen to the silence, in the quiet spaces where truth lives, where pretense dies. The lyrics felt personal, as if the girl was singing directly to her. Madison found herself stepping closer, drawn into the small circle of listeners that had gathered. A businessman in a rumpled suit dropped a $5 bill into the guitar case. A teenage couple shared earbuds but paused their music to listen. An elderly woman with a shopping cart nodded along to the rhythm. When the song ended, the musician looked up, and once again her eyes found Madison's. This time, Madison didn't look away. "Any requests?" the girl asked the small crowd, but her gaze lingered on Madison. "Something original," Madison heard herself say, surprised by her own voice. The musician smiled, that same genuine expression that had haunted Madison's thoughts. "I've got just the thing." She began a new song, something about two people from different worlds finding common ground in unexpected places. As she sang, Madison noticed details she'd missed before, the calluses on the girl's fingertips from years of playing, the way her eyes closed when she hit certain notes, the small scar above her left eyebrow that somehow made her more beautiful rather than less. When the performance ended and the small crowd dispersed, Madison found herself approaching the musician directly. "That was beautiful," Madison said, feeling awkward and uncertain in a way she hadn't experienced since her teenage years. "Thank you." The girl began packing her guitar with practiced efficiency. "I'm Harper, by the way. Harper Lane." "Madison." She paused, then added, "Cole." If Harper recognized the name, and in LA most people did, she didn't show it. "Nice to meet you, Madison. You don't look like a regular metro rider." Madison glanced down at her designer jeans and cashmere sweater, probably worth more than most people made in a month. "Is it that obvious? The shoes gave you away," Harper said with a grin, nodding toward Madison's Italian leather boots. "But hey, music is for everyone, right?" "Right." Madison watched Harper secure her guitar in its worn case. "How long have you been playing?" "Since I was 8. My dad taught me before he—" Harper's expression flickered, a shadow passing across her features. "Before he died, music was his thing, and I guess it became mine too." "I'm sorry for your loss. It was a long time ago." Harper stood, slinging her guitar case over her shoulder. "But thank you. What about you? Do you play anything?" Madison almost laughed. "Piano lessons when I was young, but I was terrible. Too impatient, according to my instructor. I preferred activities with more immediate results." "Like what?" "Business, numbers, building things." Madison realized how cold that sounded. "I mean, creating companies, jobs, solutions to problems." Harper studied her with curious eyes. "That's important too. The world needs builders." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, the sounds of the metro station flowing around them, distant train announcements, footsteps on concrete, the urban symphony Madison had never really listened to before. "I should go," Harper said finally. "Early morning tomorrow, of course." Madison felt a strange reluctance to end the conversation. "Will you be here again?" "Most nights. The evening crowd is more generous, and they actually listen instead of just rushing past." Madison nodded, then surprised herself by saying, "Maybe I'll see you around." "Maybe you will." As Harper walked toward the exit, Madison called after her. "Harper?" The musician turned back. "That last song, about people from different worlds. Was that really improvised?" Harper's smile was enigmatic. "Sometimes the best songs write themselves. You just have to be brave enough to sing them." Madison watched her disappear into the crowd, feeling as if something fundamental had shifted in her carefully ordered world. She'd built her entire life around control, predictability, and emotional distance. But standing in that metro station, she felt the first crack in the foundation she'd spent years constructing. On the drive back to Malibu, Madison found herself humming Harper's melody, the words echoing in her mind, in the quiet spaces where truth lives, where pretense dies. For the first time in years, Madison Cole was curious about what might happen if she let her guard down, just a little. Monday morning brought Madison back to her familiar world of board meetings, acquisition deals, and the relentless pace of corporate leadership. But she found herself distracted during a presentation about Q4 projections, her mind drifting to guitar melodies and auburn hair catching fluorescent light. "Madison?" Sarah's voice cut through her reverie. "The Henderson team is waiting for your input on the merger timeline." Madison blinked, refocusing on the conference room full of executives staring at her expectantly. "Right. Push the timeline back 2 weeks. I want a more thorough analysis of their debt structure." After the meeting, Sarah cornered her in the hallway. "Okay, what's going on? You've been in another world all morning." "Nothing's going on. I'm fine." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "Mads, I've known you for 8 years. You don't do distracted. You don't do fine. You do laser-focused and terrifyingly efficient. So what's different?" Madison considered deflecting, but Sarah's concerned expression made her reconsider. "I met someone." "Finally!" Sarah's face lit up. "Who is he? Please tell me it's not another tech bro with a god complex." "It's not a he." Sarah's expression shifted to surprise, then understanding. "Oh, okay. Who is she?" Madison had never explicitly discussed her sexuality with Sarah, though she'd suspected her friend had figured it out years ago. Madison herself had always been more attracted to intelligence and authenticity than gender, but she'd never acted on those feelings with anyone. "Her name is Harper. She's a musician. Like in a band. Does she have a record deal? She plays in the metro station." Sarah's eyebrows shot up. "The metro? Madison, you don't even take the metro." "I do now." That evening, Madison found herself back at Pershing Square, but this time she'd made an effort to dress down. Dark jeans, a simple sweater, sneakers instead of heels. She felt like she was playing dress-up, trying on a version of herself she'd never explored. Harper was in her usual spot, but tonight she wasn't alone. A young man with a violin case sat beside her, and they were playing together. Harper's guitar providing a rhythmic foundation while his violin soared above it with intricate melodies. Madison watched from a distance, struck by the easy collaboration between the two musicians. They communicated through glances and subtle nods, their instruments weaving together in perfect harmony. When the song ended, the small crowd that had gathered applauded enthusiastically. "Thank you," Harper said to the audience. "This is my friend Marcus. We've been working on some new arrangements." Marcus, a tall black man with kind eyes and an infectious smile, waved to the crowd. "Harper's the real talent here. I just try to keep up." As people began to disperse, dropping money into their cases, Madison approached hesitantly. "Madison!" Harper's face brightened with genuine pleasure. "You came back." "I said I might." "This is Marcus," Harper said, gesturing to her musical partner. "Marcus, this is Madison, the one I told you about." Madison felt a flutter of curiosity. Harper had talked about her. Marcus extended his hand with a warm smile. "Nice to meet you. Harper said you were a good listener." "I try to be. Marcus and I went to school together," Harper explained as she packed her guitar. "He's classically trained, but he likes to slum it with us street musicians occasionally." "Hey, some of my best gigs have been down here," Marcus protested good-naturedly. "Better audience than half the concert halls in the city." "You went to music school?" Madison asked Harper. "USC, got about halfway through before." Harper's expression clouded briefly. Life happened, but Marcus stuck it out, graduated with honors. And now I play weddings and bar mitzvahs, Marcus added with a self-deprecating laugh. Living the dream. Madison sensed there was more to both of their stories, but she didn't push. Instead, she found herself saying, "Would you like to get coffee? Both of you, I mean. There's a place around the corner that stays open late." Harper and Marcus exchanged a glance. "Sure," Harper said, "but fair warning, Marcus has strong opinions about coffee. Only that it should actually taste like coffee and not like flavored sugar water," Marcus defended. 20 minutes later, they sat in a small cafe that Madison had never noticed despite walking past it dozens of times during her downtown meetings. The lighting was warm and dim, jazz played softly in the background, and the walls were covered with local artwork. "So, what do you do, Madison?" Marcus asked, stirring his black coffee. "Besides, listen to street musicians." Madison hesitated. In her world, her identity was inseparable from her company, her net worth, her business achievements. But sitting in this cozy cafe with two people who clearly valued different things, she felt uncertain about how to answer. "I work in tech," she said finally. "Business development." It wasn't technically a lie, just an enormous understatement. "That's cool," Harper said. "What kind of tech?" "Software solutions for businesses. Pretty boring stuff." Harper studied her with those perceptive eyes. "You don't seem like someone who'd choose to do boring work." Madison felt exposed, as if Harper could see through her careful deflection. "What about you? Besides music, I mean." "I work at a coffee shop in Silver Lake during the day," Harper said. "The grind. It's not glamorous, but it pays the bills and gives me flexibility for music." "And I teach violin lessons to kids," Marcus added. "Mostly in Brentwood and Beverly Hills. Rich parents who want their children to be well-rounded." He made air quotes around the phrase. "Do you enjoy it?" Madison asked. "The kids are great. It's the parents who drive me crazy. They want their 8-year-old to sound like Itzhak Perlman after 3 lessons." Harper laughed. "Marcus has infinite patience with children and 0 tolerance for entitled adults." "Speaking of entitled adults," Marcus said, checking his phone, "I have an early lesson tomorrow with a kid whose mother insists on sitting in and helping. I should head home." He stood and gathered his jacket. "Madison, it was really nice meeting you. Harper, same time Thursday?" "Absolutely." After Marcus left, Madison and Harper sat in comfortable silence for a moment. The cafe was nearly empty now, just a few students with laptops and an elderly man reading a newspaper. "He seems like a good friend," Madison said. "The best. We've been through a lot together." Harper wrapped her hands around her coffee mug. "What about you? Do you have close friends?" Madison thought about Sarah, about the handful of business associates she occasionally socialized with, about the carefully maintained network of contacts that comprised her social life. "A few. My work keeps me pretty busy." "What do you do for fun?" The question caught Madison off guard. When was the last time she'd done something purely for enjoyment? "I read, travel, sometimes, for work. I have a nice view from my apartment." Harper smiled gently. "Those are nice things, but they sound kind of solitary." "I like solitude. There's a difference between choosing to be alone and being lonely." The observation hit closer to home than Madison cared to admit. "What about you? What do you do when you're not making music?" "Honestly, not much else. Music is pretty much my whole life. I write songs, I practice, I perform. I read about music, listen to other artists, go to shows when I can afford it." Harper paused. "I know that probably sounds limited to someone with a career and responsibilities. It sounds passionate." "It is. Sometimes I think it's the only thing I'm really good at." Madison wanted to contradict her, to point out the obvious intelligence in her lyrics, the way she connected with people, the courage it took to put yourself out there night after night. but she wasn't sure she had the right to offer such personal observations. "I should probably go," Madison said, though she didn't want to. "It's getting late." "Of course." Harper stood as well. "Thank you for the coffee, and for listening to us play. Thank you for letting me." They walked out of the cafe together, the cool Los Angeles night air carrying the scent of jasmine from a nearby garden. At the corner, they would part ways, Harper toward the metro, Madison toward her car. "Madison," Harper said as they reached the intersection. "Yes?" "I'm glad you came back. It's nice to have someone really listen, you know. Not just hear the music, but actually listen." Madison felt something warm unfurl in her chest. "I'll see you soon." "I hope so." As Madison walked to her car, she realized that for the first time in years, she was looking forward to something that had nothing to do with business, profit margins, or strategic planning. She was looking forward to seeing Harper again, to hearing her voice, to discovering what other songs she had hidden in that worn guitar case. The drive back to Malibu felt longer than usual, and when Madison reached her penthouse, the silence felt heavier than before. She stood on her balcony, looking out at the dark ocean, and found herself humming one of Harper's melodies. For the first time in her adult life, Madison Cole was beginning to understand the difference between being successful and being fulfilled. The next few weeks fell into an unexpected rhythm. Madison would finish her workdays and find herself drawn downtown, not just on weekends but on weeknight evenings when she could escape the office early enough. She told herself it was about the music, about discovering a part of Los Angeles she'd never experienced, but she knew it was really about Harper. Their conversations grew longer and more personal. Madison learned that Harper had grown up in a small town outside Sacramento, that her mother was a nurse who worked double shifts to support them after her father's death, that Harper had come to LA with dreams of making it in the music industry, but had quickly discovered how brutal and political that world could be. "I had a meeting with a record label executive once," Harper told her one evening, as they shared a late dinner at the cafe. "He spent the entire time staring at my chest and suggesting I might want to consider a more commercial image. When I played him my songs, he said they were too cerebral for radio." Madison felt a flash of anger on Harper's behalf. "What did you do?" "I thanked him for his time and left. Marcus was waiting outside. He'd insisted on coming with me because he didn't trust the guy. Smart man." Harper smiled ruefully. "That was 2 years ago. I haven't pursued the traditional route since then." "Maybe that's for the best. Your music is too good to be watered down for mass consumption." Harper looked surprised. "You really think so?" "I know so. I've been to concerts by Grammy winners who couldn't move me the way you do with just a guitar and your voice." The compliment hung between them, more intimate than Madison had intended. She was learning that Harper had a way of drawing honesty from her, making her say things she normally kept locked away. "What about you?" Harper asked. "Have you always worked in tech?" Madison had been dreading this question, knowing that her careful deflections were becoming harder to maintain. "I started my company when I was 22. "Started your company?" Harper's eyebrows rose. "That's impressive. What kind of software do you develop?" "Business solutions, workflow optimization, data analysis, that sort of thing." Madison took a sip of her coffee, buying time. "It's grown quite a bit over the years." "How big is quite a bit?" Madison hesitated. "We have about 3,000 employees." Harper nearly choked on her coffee. 3,000. "Madison, that's not a company, that's a corporation. You're not in business development, you're the CEO, aren't you?" The jig was up. Madison nodded reluctantly. "Holy shit." Harper stared at her. "What's the name of your company?" "Cole Industries." Harper's eyes widened. "Cole Industries, as in the Cole Industries building downtown, as in the billionaire tech mogul Madison Cole." "I prefer millionaire," Madison said weakly. "Billionaire sounds so excessive." Harper leaned back in her chair, processing this information. "You're Madison Cole, the Madison Cole, and you've been slumming it in metro stations and dive cafes with a street musician." "I haven't been slumming it," Madison said quickly. "This isn't some kind of charity project or social experiment." I genuinely enjoy spending time with you. But you lied to me. I didn't lie, I just simplified. Harper was quiet for a long moment, and Madison felt panic rising in her chest. She'd known this moment would come, had dreaded it, but she hadn't expected it to feel like losing something precious. Why? Harper asked finally. Because I wanted you to see me as just Madison, not as a net worth or a business empire. I wanted to be normal for a while. Normal. Harper repeated the word like it tasted bitter. Is that what this is to you, playing normal? No, that's not what I meant. Because I have to tell you, Madison, there's nothing normal about a billionaire CEO pretending to be a regular person so she can feel better about herself. The accusation stung because it contained a grain of truth. That's not fair, isn't it? Harper's voice was rising, drawing glances from other cafe patrons. Do you have any idea what my life is actually like? I make maybe $30,000 a year between the coffee shop and busking. I live in a studio apartment in Koreatown that I share with 2 roommates. I eat ramen for dinner most nights because it's what I can afford, and you've been sitting here listening to me talk about my struggles while you could probably buy the entire block we're sitting on. Madison felt tears prick her eyes. I never meant to deceive you. I just wanted to get to know you without all the complications that come with who I am. Complications like what? Having to pretend you care about poor people. Complications like people wanting things from me, money, connections, opportunities. I never know if someone likes me or what I can do for them. Harper's expression softened slightly, but her voice remained guarded. So you decided to test me? See if the poor musician would pass your authenticity exam? It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? Madison struggled to find words that could explain the loneliness of her position, the way wealth and power had isolated her from genuine human connection. When I met you, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. You looked at me like I was just a person, not a business opportunity or a conquest. I didn't want to lose that. But you did lose it, Harper said quietly, the moment you decided I couldn't handle the truth. They sat in silence, the weight of Madison's deception settling between them like a wall. Madison wanted to reach across the table, to take Harper's hand, to somehow bridge the gap that had opened between them, but she could see in Harper's eyes that the damage was done. I should go, Harper said, standing and gathering her jacket. Harper, please. Can we talk about this? I need some time to think. Harper paused at the table. I don't know what this was for you, Madison. Maybe it was genuine, maybe it was just a rich person's fantasy, but for me, it was real. And that's what makes this hurt so much. Madison watched Harper leave, feeling something crack inside her chest. She'd spent years building walls to protect herself from exactly this kind of pain, and in a few short weeks, Harper had managed to slip past every defense she'd constructed. She sat alone in the cafe until closing time, staring at her untouched coffee and wondering if this was what heartbreak felt like. She'd never allowed herself to get close enough to anyone to find out. The drive back to Malibu felt endless. Her penthouse, usually a sanctuary of order and control, felt like a mausoleum. Madison stood on her balcony, looking out at the dark ocean, and realized that all her success, all her wealth, all her carefully constructed life meant nothing if she had no one to share it with. For the first time since building her empire, Madison Cole felt truly poor. Madison threw herself into work with a vengeance, staying at the office until midnight, scheduling back-to-back meetings and accepting every speaking engagement and board position offered to her. If she kept busy enough, she reasoned, she wouldn't have time to think about Harper's hurt expression or the way her own chest ached every time she passed a metro station. "You're going to burn out," Sarah warned during a rare lunch break 3 weeks after the cafe confrontation. "You've been working 18-hour days. Even you have limits." "I'm fine," Madison replied, not looking up from her tablet where she was reviewing acquisition proposals. "No, you're not. You're miserable. What happened with the musician? Madison's fingers stilled on the screen. She hadn't told Sarah about the disastrous revelation, hadn't told anyone. It didn't work out. Why not? Different worlds. It was naive to think it could work. Sarah studied her friend's face, noting the dark circles under her eyes, the way her usually perfect posture had developed a slight slump. Mads, in all the years I've known you, I've never seen you care about someone the way you cared about her. Don't you think it's worth fighting for? She doesn't want to see me. Did she tell you that? Madison finally looked up. She told me she needed time to think. That was 3 weeks ago. So give her more time, but don't give up. That evening, Madison found herself driving downtown, despite her better judgment. She parked near Pershing Square and walked to the metro station, her heart pounding with a mixture of hope and dread. Harper wasn't there. Madison waited for an hour, watching other commuters hurry past the empty corner where Harper usually performed. A different musician had set up nearby, a middle-aged man with a saxophone, but his music felt hollow compared to the authentic emotion Harper brought to her performances. She returned the next night and the next, but Harper never appeared. On the 4th night, Marcus was there with his violin, playing solo arrangements of classical pieces. Madison approached hesitantly. "Marcus?" He looked up, his expression carefully neutral. "Madison, I wondered if I'd see you again. Where's Harper?" Marcus finished his song before answering, giving himself time to choose his words carefully. "She's taking a break from performing here. Is she okay?" "Define okay." Marcus began packing his violin. "She's not hurt, if that's what you're asking, but she's not herself either." Madison felt a stab of guilt. "It's my fault." "Yeah, it is." Marcus's bluntness was like a slap. "Harper told me what happened, about who you really are. I never meant to hurt her, but you did." Marcus closed his violin case and stood. "Look, I don't know you well enough to judge your character, but I know Harper, and I know she doesn't let people in easily. When she does, it means something. I care about her. Do you? Or do you care about how she made you feel?" The question hit home. Madison had been so focused on her own loneliness, her own need for authentic connection, that she hadn't fully considered what her deception had cost Harper. "Where is she?" Madison asked. Marcus hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. "She's been picking up extra shifts at the coffee shop, the Grind in Silver Lake. But Madison, if you're going to show up there, make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. Harper's been hurt enough." The next morning, Madison found herself standing outside the Grind, a small coffee shop with mismatched furniture and local artwork covering the walls. Through the window, she could see Harper behind the counter, her hair pulled back in a ponytail, taking orders with professional efficiency, but none of her usual warmth. Madison watched for 20 minutes, working up the courage to go inside. She'd faced down hostile takeovers, aggressive investors, and congressional hearings, but the thought of walking into that coffee shop terrified her. Finally, she pushed through the door. The shop was busy with the morning rush, and Harper was focused on the espresso machine, steam hissing as she prepared drinks. Madison got in line, her palms sweating despite the cool morning air. When she reached the counter, Harper looked up and froze. For a moment, neither of them spoke. "What can I get you?" Harper asked finally, her voice professionally polite but cold. "Just coffee, black." Harper turned to pour the coffee, her movements precise but tense. When she handed Madison the cup, their fingers brushed briefly, and Madison felt that familiar electric connection. "That'll be $3.50, Harper said, not meeting her eyes. Madison handed over a $5 bill. "Keep the change." "Thanks." Madison lingered at the counter, aware that other customers were waiting but unable to walk away. "Harper, could we talk, please?" "I'm working." "When do you get off?" Harper finally looked at her directly, and Madison saw the hurt still roar in her eyes. "Why, Madison? What could you possibly have to say that would make any difference?" I want to apologize, really apologize, not just for lying, but for not understanding what that lie cost you." Harper stared at her for a long moment, then glanced at the growing line of customers. "I get off at 2. There's a park across the street." Madison spent the next 4 hours in a nearby bookstore, unable to concentrate on anything but the approaching conversation. At exactly 2 o'clock, she was sitting on a bench in the small park, watching Harper emerge from the coffee shop and walk toward her. Harper sat on the opposite end of the bench, maintaining careful distance between them. "I've been thinking about what you said," Madison began. "About me testing you, about playing normal. And you were right. I was being selfish." Harper didn't respond, so Madison continued. "I've spent so many years having people want things from me that I forgot what it felt like to just be wanted for myself. When I met you, I felt like I could breathe again. But instead of trusting you with the truth, I decided to protect myself by lying to you. You didn't just lie about your job, Madison. You lied about your entire life. Every time I talked about struggling to pay rent, every time I mentioned not being able to afford something, you just sat there knowing you could solve all my problems with pocket change. I know, and I'm sorry. Are you sorry you lied, or are you sorry you got caught?" Madison considered the question seriously. "Both, but mostly I'm sorry I hurt you. I'm sorry I made you feel like you weren't worth the truth." Harper was quiet for a long time, watching a group of children play on the nearby swings. "Do you know what the worst part was?" she said finally. "Tell me. It wasn't finding out you were rich. It was realizing that you thought I was so shallow, so predictable, that I couldn't handle knowing who you really were. You assumed I'd either want your money or be intimidated by your success. You never gave me the chance to prove you wrong." Madison felt tears threatening. "You're right. I projected my own fears onto you instead of trusting what I knew about your character. And what did you know about my character? That you're honest, brave, talented, that you see people for who they really are, not what they can do for you, that you have more integrity in your little finger than most people have in their entire bodies." Harper turned to look at her directly. "If you really believed that, why didn't you trust me?" "Because I was scared. Because caring about you made me vulnerable in a way I'd never experienced before. Because I'd rather lose you through my own cowardice than risk you leaving me for who I really am." "And who are you really, Madison?" Madison took a shaky breath. "I'm someone who built a successful company but failed at building a life. I'm someone who has everything money can buy, but nothing that actually matters. I'm someone who was so afraid of being hurt that I hurt the first person to make me feel alive in years." Harper was quiet for a long moment. "I don't want your money, Madison. I never did, but I did want your honesty. I wanted to know the real you, not the version you thought I could handle. I want that too. I want to be real with you. It's not that simple anymore. Trust isn't something you can just apologize back into existence." Madison nodded, feeling the weight of her mistakes. "I know, but I'm hoping it's something we can rebuild if you're willing to try." Harper stood up from the bench. "I need more time, Madison. This isn't just about forgiveness. It's about figuring out if we can have something real when we come from such different worlds." "Our worlds don't have to be different," Madison said quickly. "I could..." "What? Give up your company? Pretend to be poor? That's not the answer either." Madison realized Harper was right. The solution wasn't for either of them to pretend to be someone else. It was about finding a way to bridge their different realities honestly. "What if we started over?" Madison suggested. "No lies, no pretending. Just two people getting to know each other for who they really are." Harper looked at her with something that might have been hope. "I don't know if that's possible." Could we try? Could we at least try?" Harper was quiet for so long that Madison thought she might walk away without answering. Finally, she spoke. "I'll think about it." It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no either. As Madison watched Harper walk back toward the coffee shop, she felt something she hadn't experienced in weeks: hope. For the first time since her deception had been revealed, Madison Cole believed there might be a way forward. 2 weeks passed before Harper called. Madison was in her office, reviewing quarterly reports, when her phone rang with an unknown number. "Hello? It's Harper." The voice was tentative, careful. "Are you free to talk?" Madison's heart jumped. "Yes, always. I've been thinking about what you said, about starting over, and I think I'd like to try, but I have conditions." Madison would have agreed to almost anything at that point. Name them. Complete honesty. No more omissions. No more protecting me from who you are. If we're going to do this, I need to know what I'm getting into. Agreed. And I want to understand your world. Not so I can be part of it, but so I can understand you, the real you. Madison felt a flutter of nervousness. Her world was ruthless, competitive, often ugly. She'd spent years insulating herself from its worst aspects, but showing Harper that reality meant exposing the parts of herself she liked least. "That might not be pretty," Madison warned. "I'm not looking for pretty. I'm looking for real." They met that evening at a neutral location, a small restaurant in Los Feliz that was upscale enough for Madison to feel comfortable, but casual enough that Harper wouldn't feel out of place. Madison arrived first, choosing a corner table where they could talk privately. When Harper walked in, Madison felt that familiar flutter of attraction mixed with nervousness. Harper had dressed up slightly, dark jeans and a soft blue sweater that brought out her eyes, but she still looked authentically herself. "Thank you for coming," Madison said as Harper sat down. "Thank you for being patient." They ordered drinks and appetizers. The conversation initially stilted as they navigated this new dynamic. Madison found herself second-guessing every word, afraid of saying something that would send Harper running again. "Tell me about your company," Harper said finally. "Not the sanitized version, the real story." Madison took a breath. "I started Coal Industries when I was 22, with a loan I got by lying about my age and experience. I had an idea for software that could streamline inventory management for small businesses, but no one would take a meeting with a college dropout. So you lied. I created a fictional business history and wore my mother's suits to look older. It worked. I got the loan, developed the software, and landed my first major client within 6 months." Harper leaned forward, intrigued despite herself. "What happened next?" "I reinvested everything back into the company. Lived on ramen and slept on my office couch for 2 years while I built the client base. By the time I was 25, we'd gone public. That's incredible. It was also brutal. I made enemies, stepped on people, prioritized profit over everything else. I told myself it was necessary for survival, but the truth is, I liked the power. I liked winning." Harper studied her face. "Do you still like it?" Madison considered the question. "The winning, yes. The power. It's complicated. It's isolating, but it's also the only thing I've ever been really good at." "I doubt that's true. What else am I good at?" "Listening, understanding people. You saw something in my music that most people miss." Madison felt a warmth spread through her chest. "Music is easy to understand when it's honest. Your songs don't hide anything. Unlike their creator," Harper said with a small smile. "What do you mean?" "I haven't been completely honest either, Madison. I let you think I was just some struggling artist with no options, but that's not entirely true." Madison waited for her to continue. "I have a trust fund," Harper said quietly. "Not huge, but enough that I could afford a better apartment, could stop working at the coffee shop if I wanted to. My grandmother left it to me when she died." "Why don't you use it?" "Because I want to make it on my own. Because taking that money feels like giving up on my dreams. Because," Harper paused, looking uncomfortable, "because I was afraid you'd think I was just another privileged kid playing at being poor." Madison reached across the table and took Harper's hand. "I would never think that. Your music, your talent, your character, none of that has anything to do with money." "But it does, doesn't it? Money affects everything, whether we want it to or not. Madison nodded. It does, but it doesn't have to define everything. They talked for 3 hours, sharing stories about their childhoods, their fears, their dreams. Madison told Harper about the loneliness of success, about board meetings where she was the only woman, about the constant pressure to prove herself. Harper talked about her father's death, about watching her mother work herself to exhaustion, about the music industry's casual cruelty toward women. "I want to show you something," Madison said as they prepared to leave. "Tomorrow, if you're free." "What kind of something?" "My office, a board meeting." The real Madison Cole in her natural habitat. Harper looked surprised. "Are you sure? That seems like a big step. You said you wanted to understand my world. This is it, the good, the bad, and the ugly." The next day, Harper arrived at the Cole Industries building wearing a simple black dress and looking nervous. Madison met her in the lobby, struck again by how Harper's presence seemed to change the energy of any space she entered. "Impressive," Harper said, looking up at the soaring glass atrium. "Wait until you see the view from the top." Madison's assistant Jennifer did a double take when they stepped off the elevator. Madison had never brought anyone personal to the office before. "Jennifer, this is Harper Lane. Harper, Jennifer keeps my life organized." "Nice to meet you," Jennifer said, clearly curious but too professional to ask questions. Madison showed Harper around the executive floor, pointing out the conference rooms, the employee lounge, the wall of awards and recognition. Harper asked thoughtful questions about the business, about Madison's role, about the company culture. "It's not what I expected," Harper said, as they stood in Madison's office, looking out at the Los Angeles skyline. "What did you expect?" "Something colder, more intimidating. This feels human. I've tried to build a company I'd want to work for. It doesn't always succeed, but I try." At 2 p.m., Madison led Harper to the main conference room, where the weekly executive meeting was about to begin. "You can sit in the back," Madison said. "Just observe." Harper watched as Madison transformed before her eyes. The woman who had been vulnerable and open over dinner became commanding, decisive, razor-sharp. She led the meeting with quiet authority, asking probing questions, making quick decisions, cutting through corporate speak to get to the heart of issues. "The Henderson acquisition is moving too slowly," Madison said to her VP of Development. "What's the holdup?" "Their legal team is being difficult about the intellectual property clauses." "Then we make it clear that this deal happens on our terms, or it doesn't happen at all. We're not desperate. They are." Harper watched the other executives nod and take notes, clearly accustomed to Madison's direct style. This was a side of Madison she'd never seen. Powerful, uncompromising, slightly intimidating. But even in this mode, Harper could see the intelligence and fairness that guided Madison's decisions. After the meeting, they walked back to Madison's office in silence. "So," Madison asked, suddenly uncertain, "what did you think?" "I think you're terrifying and impressive in equal measure." Madison winced. "Terrifying?" "In the best possible way. You command respect without demanding it. People listen to you because they trust your judgment, not because they're afraid of you." "Is that how it seemed?" "That's exactly how it seemed. But Madison, that person in there, that's not the whole you, is it?" Madison considered the question. "No, but it's a big part of me, the part that built all this. And the part that sits in metro stations listening to street musicians. That's a part of me too, a part I'd forgotten existed until I met you." Harper moved closer, studying Madison's face. "I think I'm starting to understand." "Understand what?" "Why you were afraid to tell me the truth. You thought I'd only see the CEO, not the woman." Madison nodded. "Most people do. But I'm not most people." "No," Madison said softly. "You're not." Harper reached up and touched Madison's cheek gently. "I see both versions of you, the powerful businesswoman and the lonely person looking for connection. They're both real, and they're both you." Madison felt tears prick her eyes. "I've never had anyone see me that clearly before." "Then you've been spending time with the wrong people." They stood close together in the quiet office, the city sprawling below them, and Madison felt something shift between them. Not forgiveness exactly, but understanding, acceptance. "Harper, yes? Would you like to have dinner at my place this time? I'd like to cook for you." Harper smiled, the first genuine smile Madison had seen from her in weeks. "I'd like that very much." As they left the office together, Madison felt something she hadn't experienced in years. The possibility of having both success and happiness, of being both powerful and vulnerable, of building something real with someone who saw all of her and chose to stay anyway. Madison's Malibu penthouse had never felt like home until the evening Harper first walked through its doors. As Harper stood on the balcony, watching the sunset paint the Pacific in shades of gold and pink, Madison saw her space through new eyes, beautiful but sterile, expensive but empty. "It's stunning," Harper said, but Madison caught the note of uncertainty in her voice. "But," Harper turned from the view, "it's very clean." Madison laughed. "That's a polite way of saying it has no personality." "I didn't say that. You didn't have to. You're right. It looks like a magazine spread, not a place where someone actually lives." Madison had spent the afternoon cooking, something she rarely did, preparing a simple pasta dish that wouldn't require her to leave Harper alone while she fussed in the kitchen. Now, as they sat at her dining table, with its view of the ocean, she felt nervous in a way that had nothing to do with business deals or board meetings. "This is delicious," Harper said, twirling linguine around her fork. "I didn't know you cooked." "I don't, usually, but I wanted tonight to be special." "It is special." They ate in comfortable silence for a while, the sound of waves providing a gentle soundtrack. Madison found herself studying Harper's face in the candlelight, memorizing the way her eyes crinkled when she smiled, the graceful movement of her hands. "Can I ask you something?" Harper said eventually. "Anything." "What do you want, Madison? Not from your company or your career, but from life. What would make you happy?" The question caught Madison off guard. She'd spent so many years focused on the next acquisition, the next quarter's growth, the next milestone that she'd stopped thinking about happiness as a goal. "I don't know," she admitted. "For so long, success was enough. Building something, proving I could do it, winning. But lately, I've been wondering what the point of all of it is if I have no one to share it with." Harper reached across the table and took her hand. "You don't have to be alone, you know. That's a choice you've been making." "I know. I'm trying to make different choices now." After dinner, they moved to the living room, where Harper noticed Madison's piano, a beautiful Steinway grand that dominated one corner of the space. "You play?" Harper asked, running her fingers along the piano's polished surface. "Not really, not anymore." Madison joined her by the instrument. "I bought it because I thought I should have one, but I haven't touched it in years." "May I?" Madison nodded, and Harper sat at the bench, her fingers finding the keys with the same natural grace she brought to her guitar. She began playing a gentle melody, something Madison didn't recognize, but that felt familiar anyway, like a song she'd been waiting her whole life to hear. "What is that?" Madison asked softly. "Something new. I've been working on it." Harper's voice was quiet, almost shy. "It's about finding something you didn't know you were looking for." Madison sat beside her on the bench, close enough to feel the warmth of Harper's body, to catch the faint scent of her perfume. "It's beautiful." Harper's hands stilled on the keys. "Madison?" "Yes?" "I need you to know something. These past few weeks, thinking about us, about whether this could work, it wasn't just about the lying. It was about being scared." "Scared of what?" "Of this." Harper gestured between them. "Of caring about someone whose life is so different from mine. Of not being enough." Madison turned to face her fully. "Harper, you are more than enough. You're everything. But what happens when the novelty wears off? When you remember that I'm just a coffee shop worker who plays music in subway stations?" You're not just anything. You're an artist, a dreamer, someone who sees beauty in the world and shares it with others. You're braver than anyone I know." Harper's eyes filled with tears. "I've never felt about anyone the way I feel about you. It terrifies me." Madison reached up and cupped Harper's face gently. "It terrifies me too, but maybe that's how we know it's real." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of their confessions hanging between them. Then Harper leaned forward, and their lips met in a kiss that was soft, tentative, and full of promise. When they broke apart, Madison rested her forehead against Harper's. "I want to try," she whispered. "I want to build something real with you, whatever that looks like. Even if it's complicated, especially if it's complicated, the best things usually are." Harper smiled and turned back to the piano, beginning a new song, this one more upbeat, hopeful. "Play with me," she said. "I told you I'm terrible. I don't care, just follow my lead." Madison placed her hands on the keys, letting Harper guide her through a simple melody. She made mistakes, hit wrong notes, but Harper just laughed and adjusted the harmony to accommodate her fumbling. For the first time in years, Madison didn't care about being perfect. She was just enjoying the moment, the music, the woman beside her. "See," Harper said as the song ended, "you're not terrible. You just needed the right teacher." "Is that what you are? My teacher?" Among other things, they talked until late into the night, sharing stories and dreams, planning tentative steps forward. Harper would keep her job at the coffee shop and her music, but she'd also spend time in Madison's world, learning about the business, meeting the people who mattered to Madison. Madison would make space in her life for Harper's world too. The late-night performances, the community of artists and musicians, the simple pleasures she'd forgotten existed. "I have an idea," Madison said, as they stood on the balcony, wrapped in a blanket and watching the stars reflect on the dark ocean. "What kind of idea?" "What if coal industries started a foundation for arts education, supporting young musicians who can't afford formal training?" Harper looked at her with surprise. "You'd do that? We'd do that. Together. You'd know better than I would what kind of support would actually make a difference." "Madison, that's incredible. But are you sure? That's a big commitment." "I'm sure. I want to use what I've built for something meaningful. And I can't think of anything more meaningful than helping people like you share their gifts with the world." Harper kissed her then, soft and sweet under the starlight. "I love you," she whispered against Madison's lips. Madison's heart stopped. "You do?" "I do. I love your ambition and your vulnerability. I love how you listen to music and how you command a boardroom. I love that you're brave enough to change, to let someone in." "I love you too," Madison said, the words feeling both foreign and perfectly natural. "I love your passion and your integrity. I love how you see the world and how you make me see it differently. I love that you're teaching me what it means to really live." 6 months later, Madison stood in the same metro station where they'd first met. But this time, she wasn't alone. A small crowd had gathered to watch Harper perform at the launch event for the Cole Foundation's first scholarship program. Marcus was there with his violin, along with a dozen other local musicians who'd benefited from the foundation's support. "Ladies and gentlemen," Madison said into the microphone they'd set up, "music has the power to change lives. It changed mine when I heard Harper Lane play in this very spot. Tonight, we're here to ensure that financial barriers don't prevent talented artists from sharing their gifts with the world." The crowd applauded as Harper stepped forward with her guitar. She'd written a new song for the occasion, something about bridges and second chances and the courage to love across differences. As Harper sang, Madison watched from the side, marveling at how much her life had changed. She still ran her company with the same passion and precision, but now she had something to come home to, someone who challenged her, supported her, and loved all the different parts of who she was. When the song ended and the crowd dispersed, Harper joined Madison near the metro entrance. "So," Harper said, slipping her hand into Madison's, "ready to go home?" Madison looked around at the station where their story had begun. than at the woman who'd taught her the difference between success and fulfillment. With you, I'm ready for anything. As they walked toward the exit together, Madison realized that she'd finally found what she'd been searching for without knowing it. Not just love, but partnership. Not just success, but purpose. Not just a life, but a home. The music of their beginning had become the soundtrack of their future, and Madison Cole had never been happier to be wrong about what she thought she wanted. Sometimes the best things in life were the ones you never saw coming, played by someone brave enough to share their heart with strangers in a subway station, sung by someone who could see past your walls to the person you were meant to be. In the end, Madison had learned that the richest life wasn't measured in dollars or achievements, but in moments like these. Walking hand in hand with someone who loved you for exactly who you were, building something beautiful together, one note at a time.